Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the after show version of the show, where we're actually going to take a concept and a topic that started from inside the game of STO, that's Star Trek Online for those of you who don't play, and we're going to bring it out to real life. So here we have it. Here we have our gentleman here from inside STO, Captain SOB, Mr. Spence. Say hello to the crowd.
Hello.
We have our friend here, Timberwolf. Mr. Wolf, please give us a howl.
Oh!
And we have our foreign emissary of the adversary of the big bad memissary, Mr. Snipey, a.k.a. the Aussie from the land down under.
How's it going, mate?
So bad. Folks, he really doesn't talk like that.
Our accent when it's put like that. Sorry, I just had to say that. Yeah. We all then sound like Crocodile Dundee.
This is already a great after show.
Do you already drink Foster?
No, that's cat's piss. Don't drink Foster.
All right, back to the serious topic here. Please, Timberwolf, would you like to lead us in, because you've done it so well when you're discussing it on the show STO. So please lead us in with this here.
Okay, so what happened was in this past week and a half, we had a new episode come out, a featured episode called The House of Pech. Now, as far as what the story is for the game, it's probably not relevant to some people that are listening in. It's generally just a counterattack episode, just being very basic. But what's been hitting the news channels as far as what's controversial is that during about, I would really want to say, taking up about 15 seconds of your time in the game, it's hinted at that two Klingon women are in a relationship together that goes beyond the basic friendship, platonic, simply because of the word mate was used. Now, of course, mate has a grand and vast meaning, but the connotations used in how the conversations in the background were taken, they're in a relationship. You know, they're in a relationship. Nothing wrong with that. It's been explored in the Star Trek community for decades now. It's been around in the shows. It's been around in fan series. It's accepted. It's even accepted in real world. It's something that happens. It's normal. But it hit, I guess, negatively. It's kind of gone two ways. People that accept it versus people that think it's some other outlet trying to force the view on you, just like you see in normal media. It's people that say, you know, it's normal, it should just be accepted, and then there's people saying, quit forcing it down my throat. I don't want to see it anymore. And it blew up even further off of a moderator's comment on the forums for this game. And then it went to the next level when another gaming site, massively overpowered, reported on it and fanned the flames of it. And then it just blew way out of proportion, just out of proportion over something that, for starters, was in the background. It had nothing to do with the storyline whatsoever as far as what they were trying to tell with this story. It was something that was almost thought of, I want to say, as an afterthought. Just something in the background, it's an afterthought. Yeah, they're a couple. It's no big deal. They're running, they're fighting together. No big deal. But the fact that it's been taken to this level, and you see it in real life all the time. Odin's got a few examples for us, but it's just, it was taken to a point that it didn't need to be taken to, because it's accepted in the Star Trek universe, it's accepted in real life, and for it to be blown up to this level is almost to the point of lunacy, for the simple fact that, okay, they're in a relationship. What's the big deal here? I mean, if this was real life, it'd be the same thing. Like, what's the big deal here? This is what it is. This is what they have going. Like,
now, I find it very ironic that this actually came up in a Star Trek themed environment. Because if you remember your history, in Star Trek, the original series, it was the first time an interracial kiss was ever aired on network television.
Yes, and people have tried to debate that as far as it wasn't the first interracial kiss, and it might not have been. But the thing that Star Trek did is this was on network television for the interracial kiss. This was on network television in front of millions of viewers all over the U.S., possibly seen in other countries at the time, despite limitations. I mean, maybe probably not all over the world, but it was on network television, prime time. People all over the country were seeing this. That's what made it so controversial and just so, breakthrough, brand new. And I could see an uproar for what we're seeing here in this game be an uproar in the 80s, okay? I could see that. But Star Trek has explored multiple views of relationships. I can reference at least back to the 80s with the Next Generation. They've explored same-sex, opposite-sex, multi-sex, with some races needing 4 or 5 different sexes of their own species to mate. They've explored polygamy. They've just explored everything pretty much.
Androgynous entities where they would temporarily swap to one sex or another for
or
reproduction.
Yeah, it's just they've explored so much with it that, especially in the Star Trek community, this is commonplace. This is nothing new. It's been hashed over for 30, 40 years now. And in real life, it's been a hot topic issue for the past, honestly, I want to say 15 years. To be perfectly honest. It's because everybody it's been equal rights issues. It's been just lifestyle issues. It's been a lot of different hot topic issues in the political realm and the social realm everywhere. So it's not new even in real life, but to see that something like this that's so very minor and doesn't really matter because it was a background issue to begin with, and it's socially acceptable by the norm, and it's normal. I mean, these two Klingons love each other. For it to blow up to the level that it has is ridiculous, especially with how the people that have tried to help fan the flames have actually been successful in fanning the flames exponentially as it's gone on.
Well, that kind of makes me think that it's not socially acceptable to the degree that people make it out to be. I mean, yes, this is the 21st century. Yes, the USA is a first world nation, but yet we still see this stemming from here as the USA leading this charge against a group of people who just want to have the same normal life as everybody else. From my perspective, this is nothing more than denying somebody equal protection under the law, denying somebody the same right to exist, to live, and be happy without hurting anybody else or anything else around them.
Yeah, I have to agree. And there are countries that, are against this by all means, and there's going to be people that are totally against it. There are entire countries that are against it. There are countries that are totally for it. There are countries that just really don't care. They're just like, do what you want to do. But and I'm just referencing the game for something that is ultimately fan-based at this point. It is a fan-based game off of TV shows that have been around. The oldest one's 60 years now, 50, 60 years. This is nothing more than just a background, little conversation in a video game. And it's gone to this level. It's just a background conversation. If we were seeing it in the show, you'd be seeing these two women, they wouldn't even have dialogue sometimes. It would just be holding hands, a casual hug. Or it could go full on and you actually see them kissing, or a marriage ceremony. Because when it came to Star Trek, they really just didn't care. They would be innuendo, they'd be in your face. Didn't really matter to the writers. They're in the 24th century. They can technically do whatever the hell they want. 21st century, maybe there, in some ways, we aren't as progressive as we think we are or we claim to be.
Snipey, what's your take on this from outside the USA's perspective?
Yeah, it's everything that Timber just said is 100% correct. Now, I'm going to talk for just a little bit here. First of all, I just want to say it'd be very sad if any sort of plans that the story writers in Star Trek Online had for these sort of subjects in future episodes were cancelled based on what has happened with this one, because that would, I think that they kept true with Gene Roddenberry's vision of what the Star Trek future should look like, and you know, the natural thing that you want to say is it was very brave of them to do it. I don't think it was very brave. I just think that they just kept true to what Star Trek is. And if they were turned off from doing something like this in the future because of what's happened with this situation, that will be very, very sad for the game, for the story, and for Star Trek in general. Yeah, but as far as the subject itself goes, I played that mission for the first time with the very, 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 very good friend of mine who has a family member who is gay, and we were going through this, like the first time that we play, we go through the story, at a slower pace, and and immerse ourselves in the storyline. And when we heard that, she said, "What?" And the second time we played it, listened extra carefully to make sure that's what it actually said. And it was, we were happy that was put in there. But the very fact that we even had to do that it's just not, normal now, is a matter. It's a point in itself. But as far as people like to make noise about this sort of thing because, in my opinion, they've got nothing better to do. It's, the ramming down your throat of this, like, that makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, I don't know, in Australia we can turn our computers off and we can turn our TVs off. Like, I don't know if it's different in the States, so I can't see how this stuff's being rammed down your throat. As far as the subject goes of gay and gay marriage, which is actually a topic in our country, in my country at the moment, where very much the population wants to give gay marriage the pass through Parliament, but the government don't really want to. They're stalling. My opinion on it all is that if you have a problem with it and you're not gay, then, like, shame on you, because really, it's got nothing to do with you at all. You know what I mean? Like, it's their choice, and if you really, really want to roll against it, I've got a tip for you. Don't marry a gay person. You know what I mean? Like, that will show them, but it's got nothing to do with you. It is just a part of our culture, and it's, we live in what's supposedly a free world where we make our own choices. Why is this even a subject? You know what I mean? It shouldn't even be a subject. And the very fact that people try to make such a big noise about it, it's deplorable, and those people should really not be given the oxygen for their fire to continue to burn, because it really is nothing. It's a person's free choice to be whatever they want to be.
You would see that as we're looking at it as, okay, this is the person's choice to pick whoever they want to spend the rest of their life with. Why is it then that we have other people who are so staunchly opposed from that?
I mean,
Go on.
I'll start. I'll answer Snipey as far as the shove down your throats. It's not shoved down your throats per se. It's because a lot of people in this country are very much into social media and media in general, and they feel, the people that have that viewpoint feel that that's all they see in social media, on the news, on TV shows, and it's not being shoved down their throats in any way. It's not being overt. It's not. It's just their viewpoints are so strong in their belief systems that they feel even the remotest hint of it in anything they watch is, well, they're trying to force me to do this, and it's not the case. It's just them being overly sensitive. And I'm probably going to sound like a jackass during some points of this, but I'm being honest. I'm being truthful. Um, you know, it's said that it's how they, just this is what they want. This is what they want. I can honestly say on this broadcast, I am a Christian. I have my beliefs. I have my Christian beliefs. One of those is, it's your choice. It's not my choice to tell you to believe in my faith. It's not my choice. It's not my position to force you to go against what your beliefs, your feelings, or anything are, so that you can conform. And that was one of the big things happening. Odin knows the reference, the Westboro Church. They were just so openly opposed. They wanted, they had to convert everybody. If you didn't convert, it was, a terrible thing. I think at one point they were actually going to boycott Leonard Nimoy's funeral because he enabled George Takei to be gay. And it's this horrible thing that people take what their belief system is to try and force on somebody else. You can have your belief system and not force it on anybody else, because that other person has their own belief system, and it's perfectly okay to have that.
Absolutely.
And it's perfectly okay. Okay, yeah, I'm a Christian, and I know what the Bible says. Do I believe that is 100% truth? No, because the book itself was written by man. And man can be corrupted. Man can lie. So the people writing that book, they could have been writing it their interpretations. They could have added their feelings. We have no idea, if I may, we have no idea what God intended to be in that book versus what was put in that book. Now, there are going to be fundamentalists, and fundamentalists take the book that is in front of them for their religion as that's it. What's written in it, that's it. It's divine. It's there.
Which is fine.
Which is fine, but
really free society for people to express themselves however they want to express themselves. So you're going to have the majority of people. It's like a bell curve. You're going to have the majority of people in the center, relaxed about either point of view, and you're going to have people at one end of the extreme, and you're going to have people at the other end of the extreme. It's just I grew up as a Catholic as well. I went to a Catholic school, and so I grew up learning this sort of thing myself. But what always seems to get me is that certain subjects seem to cause a lot more noise than others, and if it's connected back to Christianity or whatever, it's even more noise from those sorts of people. If that's your view and opinion that you're against homosexuality and you're against gay marriage, you're very much entitled to that opinion. And if you are, it's because of your religious viewpoint, absolutely that's your opinion. But
and see, that's not my opinion, because as a Christian, I can say I'm a Christian but not be against it, and that's kind of that was my point. I'm a Christian, but my viewpoint is, if that's what you want to do, that's who you love, who am I to stop you? Because the whole point is to spread love, understanding, and faith. That's the whole point of all of it. So if you want to marry, if you're a guy and you want to marry another guy, if you feel like you're a woman inside and you need to switch from guy to girl, that is your choice. And I will applaud you. I will help you any way I can. I will stand beside you and support you.
See, the reason I don't have any respect for the people that cause a big noise out of gay marriage or homosexuality based on their religious views is because to me it's and connecting back to the Bible and that sort of thing. The reason I've got no respect for those people is because they've cherry-picked something out of the Bible and they are trying to ram their viewpoint down the throats of others. I would have more respect for those people if they didn't cherry-pick and they, were vocal about everything the Bible talks about. Like, the Bible talks about the fact that, it's a sin to eat... we call them prawns in Australia, but it's called shrimp in America. Shellfish. That is mentioned more than homosexuality, but you don't see these people down at the local fish and chip shop, protesting against prawns being or shrimp being sold. So that to me is hypocritical that they've cherry picked one little thing out of the Bible and they go on about it the way they do. This is apart from the fact that it's got nothing to do with you and we live in a free society. So
every single John Hagee and Ken Ham out there are going to disagree with what both of you gentlemen have to say. And they'll even turn around, Timber, and say to you that you're not a true Christian because you are not following the exact letter of the Word of God.
But if I know, and as devil's advocate, if we were to follow the true letter of the law, there's a lot of things that everybody does in common day that we'd all be not true Christians. I mean, they talk about not eating of the cloven hoof. They talk about no adultery and sleeping around. They talk about I'm just be blunt here. They talk about no masturbation. There's a lot of things there that, you can spout off and pick and choose which you want, but if you want to go by the letter of law, 99% of us aren't following it. And it's just those cherry pickers, like Snipey said. They're cherry picking what they like, ignoring what either they don't really care about or they're doing on the side and they don't want people to know about, so they'll ignore those. And what they're actually cherry picking from is the Old Testament. They're talking about the Old Testament, the old laws. They completely ignore the New Testament when it comes to faith, love, understanding, caring, love thy neighbor, help thy neighbor. They ignore that because that doesn't feed their agenda, their beliefs, what they're trying to push, what they're trying to deny. They want to go with the old stuff that, was before Jesus said, hey, I'll be that bridge. We're going to spread caring, loving, understanding, togetherness, oneness. That's what we're going to spread. And it's going to be cool with my dad because I'm telling him they're cool with me. So it's going to be cool. That's the whole premise of the New Testament, is trying to go away from this anything you do will kill you to, hey, we need to work together better as a people. We need to understand one another better. We need to love one another. And that's what they're doing, is they're cherry picking from one or two specific chapters of one book just to fuel their agenda, and it's disgusting. I will agree with you, Snipey. It is disgusting, especially considering people will try to say I'm not a true Christian. Well, if they're eating cow or pig tomorrow, technically they're not a true Christian either. Same with the shrimp.
Hey, Spencer, give me an idea. Since you are pretty much the next generation coming forward here, young man, and I can clearly say that, young man, what do you see around you as far as your peers and the community that you live in? Just give the general region of where you live in the U.S. and give us a good overview of what you think people actually think about this subject about gay marriage and gay equality, as in actually don't look at them as gays, look at them as people that they just want to marry whoever they want to marry.
Don't be shy and tell them you're a corn farmer too, mate.
Well, first he's got to unmute his mic, if he's actually still there. All right, we're going to move on because he's not there. But there was something else right now that we actually had in this article, and I actually read this over on an article and then found a YouTube clip of it on Democracy Now. Now I'm kind of like so much on that, but this is one article, one video clip. They were pretty much just, this is the man's story, here it is, and I checked on several different sources on it to see if the story corroborated, and it's like, yeah, this is the word straight from his mouth, so there's no mistaking it here. But here's a student, he was a valedictorian, he was ready to give his speech, he had it revised at least once by the principal of his school, and I think they the principal primarily focused on it saying, you know what, now you shouldn't state that you're gay, so just change it. He made his changes, but he still kept the portion of it that he was still going to say that he's gay. The way he came about and stated it in the video was that he had already practiced his speech in front of his friends. So at least some of his friends knew immediately. But at near the time of graduation, whether it was at it or just before, it wasn't clear. But he was denied the right to speak on his graduation, even though it was listed for him to speak. You know, every valedictorian that I have seen and heard in high school got to speak, got to give their speech and give their outlook on what the last 4 years of their life was with their fellow classmates and what the next couple of years are going to be moving on. And here it is that he has been denied the right to speak and be recognized in front of all the families there and his peers. Denied the right to do that. Now, this right here is a shining example of why we need everybody to understand the following. The moment that your friend, your neighbor, your daughter, or your son can be stripped of their rights, their accomplishments, and their respect when they have done no wrong, committed no crime, or brought no harm to any person or property, none of us are free. Because if somebody has that type of bigoted attitude where they would say, I don't like this personal trait of you, therefore I'm going to deny you the recognition of your hard work. That's not right. And so going from a video game to where they make just a fleeting pass at somebody maybe in a homosexual relationship. I should even say it that way. Maybe being in a relationship that just so happens to be with somebody of the same sex. And people blow up about that? What other issues are they going to blow up about here? And citing these religious freedom laws that are more or less being rejuvenated in the multiple states, and states that don't have them, they're starting to pass them. It's almost like the ultra-conservative religious groups are banding together for this last charge, and they're trying to literally just push against this, where they have a right to discriminate against one group of people, but without knowing it, they've literally opened the door for open discrimination based off of religious beliefs. I mean, I'm seeing this as a big Pandora's box just waiting to be opened again. So where you're going to see multiple battles on civil rights, multiple battles on civil liberties, and multiple church versus state battles going on. And there's going to be ugly repercussions if we're not careful in these United States.
Well,
and so, go on.
It's not even just that. It's also giving very negative connotations to those religions. I mean, you know, for years it's these religions that are doing this. They just, you know, they've been doing their thing. You know, they have their believers. And it's just, they go to church on Sunday or they go to mass. They do what they're doing for their religion. And now, because a select few or a small group are coming out and waging what could almost be considered a crusade against these viewpoints, it hasn't just cast a negative viewpoint on them, it's cast negative viewpoints on the entire religion or religions, period. So when you say something like I did, I'm a Christian, there are people that instantaneously, when they hear that word, they think, oh, well, he's a racist, or he's against gay marriage, or whatever other negative connotations have now been built around that, and it puts a bad view on the church. So it's not. It adds to the problem of, you got church and state battles. Now you're ruining a religion that you 10 years ago didn't have that all these bad raps. You have civil liberties, civil freedoms. It's pretty much a trash all and see who gets trashed the least at the end of the day, and that's who wins.
I'm going to pull a Fox News here on this one and go to say this. Where are all the churches that are against this type of oppression and denying of civil rights to citizens of the United States? Where are they? How come they haven't spoken out against this? Where are those responsible pastors and community leaders who are religious across all of the religions, whether Judeo-Christian in their foundation or not? How come they haven't spoken out and spoken out loudly against stuff like this, especially these religious freedom laws?
And it's a very good question. I mean, I'm willing to speak for them as far as, that you want to pass equality laws. If it's about equality, then it should be equal. There should be no limits like, well, only these people can get married, only these people can do this right here. If you're wanting to push for equality, it's got to be every which way. I mean, some people take it as, well, if you open the door to redefine this, then someone's going to sneak in and redefine it with this as well. And it's not that. It's not that they're trying to have it where there's 40 different definitions of marriage. They're not trying to have 40 different definitions of religious freedoms or civil liberties. It's just they want to have the same right that everybody else has. And this has been stemming, as far as civil rights, it's been stemming for a long time over multiple groups. Multiple groups. It's just changed from group to group over the years and the decades. And every time it's been, okay, you get the same rights. So for it to be a big fight, I don't understand, because we're always talking about being equal. In Star Trek Online and Star Trek in general, as far as that view of the future, Gene Roddenberry's view of the future, everyone's equal. Everybody is on the same footing. They all have the same opportunities. So there should be nothing wrong with this. If we're going for a utopian society where we can all be better, we can all strive to achieve more, what's the big issue here?
I think the big issue is that as the general populace is just so busy with their day-to-day lives, that between trying to just make ends meet or go through day-to-day just for their own survival, they feel burnt out. And then those who have the energy and the resources or the sheer zealotry in them to be able to speak out against or for this, make the time to do that. And who brought up the bell curve situation here, where you have most of the people, Snipey, where you brought up the bell curve, most of the people who can either go one way or the other, are kind of like, you know what, it doesn't affect me, doesn't affect other people, I'm going to leave it alone. That's pretty much where that most of that bell curve, the populace sits on that portion there as well. So they don't take much action for it, because it literally doesn't affect them. So they figure, it's not bothering me. What they do in their life doesn't bother me, so let them be. Also, oh look, they're being oppressed, but it doesn't bother me. I'm going to leave it alone. At some point, though, this is going to come back to affect somebody within that household. So it may not bother you now, but later on it might, whether it be your friend, your uncle, your nephew, your son or your daughter, maybe even you 10 years down the road. It'll affect some aspect of your own personal life. And then when you have to face that, you're wondering, where's all the support? Where's the outrage? How come we have to deal with something like this that should be a no-brainer? They want to live their life. I want to live my life. We're not harming anybody else. They're not going to be a drag on society. Why are we stopping this?
You're absolutely right. mate. And that's not what I was meaning before when I said that it doesn't bother you. You should stay out of it. That you, in the context that you just used, yeah, I completely agree. It needs the interest. It's almost like people are taking the opinion that, oh, well, it doesn't bother me, but they're doing. So what I'm trying to say here is that they're doing on the wrong things. You know, it doesn't bother me, so I'm not going to fight about it. But I'm going to still have my opinion. You know, like because even though it doesn't bother me, you know what I mean. Even though it doesn't bother me, I'm still going to have my opinion. But if the people who are in the middle of that bell curve, well, it doesn't affect me, but it is affecting these people, and they're being treated unjustly, well, that should bother me, and I should do something about it in that sort of respect. As you probably know, I don't know if it made news over there, but because Australia is still technically a part of the Commonwealth, it did make a fair amount of news over here. I think it was Scotland, just passed gay marriage laws into their constitution. And I did see one of their TV advertisements from the pro side of the argument, and I thought it was just a brilliant way of showing how ridiculous this whole situation is. It was set in a taxi. It was set in a taxi, and basically the cab driver was gay, and what he would do with the fares that he picked up during that day, he would say some of the things that some of these more polarizing people would say, but in support of homosexuality, saying, just some of the ridiculous things that you hear that don't really bother people. Hearing it, it was like flipping. It was like flipping the side. It was like flipping the universe around. Where heterosexuality was like not normal. And those sort of things. And hearing it that way and going, well, yeah, it's hearing it in the complete opposite tone. It just makes you think that, oh my God, this is such a stupid thing. The fact that it gets so much oxygen to fuel its flame is really, you're letting a very small minority have a voice and continue to have a voice. If this is something that we all collectively believed in, then do something about it to change it, which is what Scotland have just done and what we're trying to do here in Australia right now, what New Zealand did a couple of years ago. They've changed a sentence in their constitution, and it wouldn't even be a subject anymore in New Zealand. And in a few years, it wouldn't even be a subject anymore in Scotland. It's just going to be the way. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
And I could picture 200 years ago in your country. You know what I mean? Because when there was slavery, like slavery to us now is abhorrent. It is deplorable. Okay, but 200 years ago it was accepted in your country by the majority of the population.
Not even just accepted. It was deemed as a right for those people who actually own slaves. It was a right for them to be able to lead those who are slaves to righteousness. And by doing so, in owning them, they were justified in treating them the way they did. But, exactly. I can lead them over to righteousness this way while they do my work.
I don't mean to open up another can of worms by mentioning that. I'm just trying to. No. But my point is that our view on that now, albeit a significant length of time, is that, oh my God, I can't believe that was the way things used to be. I hope not in 100 years, I hope in 10 years or something like that we look upon this time and go, why were we even talking about that? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the whole point, though, because people, I'm sorry to cut you off here on this, but this is part that's so frustrating for me anyway, is We've seen this history lesson. We've learned this history lesson. I thought we've learned this history lesson. Why are we repeating the same mistakes, using the same tired excuses, and putting it onto a different demographic? One that just so happens to transcend color lines, transcend sex, transcend the mere thought of sexuality itself. You know, they're people who are androgynous and won't care one way or the other, and even them, they are shunned. So why is it that there's such a big deal about it? And for anybody out there who may catch this video and are watching it later on, if you want to talk about this and say why you believe this should be the way it is, more than welcome to air your point. We'll give you a forum to sit on there and talk about it. But we need to understand that type of mentality so we can properly address it and say, look, if these are your fears that everybody's going to be a homosexual because that's the cool thing to do, we're not going to procreate anymore, and there goes our way of life, from my perspective and based on everybody else that I've come in contact with, which is a lot of people around the world here, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. People who are heterosexual still going to love being heterosexual. People who are homosexual are going to love being homosexual. Life will still go on. Your way of life will still go on. Your cultural beliefs, you know, whether good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, will still go on. So why should you feel threatened by a group of people who want to enjoy the same rights and privileges as you do on something that will not bring any harm or cut you off from what you enjoy?
Yeah, and you touched on it. We've already done this before in our society, and it's one of those adages, and I could not reference the person that actually said it, but the adage, those who do not study or read history are doomed to repeat history. And that's kind of what's going on here. We're just repeating history. The people that are repeating it didn't read, didn't learn anything, so they're just repeating it, oblivious to what they're really doing. And I think that's just as powerful as it is sad that we've gone through this. Like you said, we've gone through this in multiple itinerations, and yet we're still doing it. And even the more sad thing going to the future is that once we get past this one, there's going to be another itineration of this that is just as stupid, and we're going to repeat exactly what we're doing here with that next phase of it.
It's because we're human beings and we are flawed. So
yeah,
and you know, we live in a free society, and there are bad and good elements in a free society that are allowed to express their opinion. But you're right. It's, you know, the things that we're always going to have something that we're struggling with, that people are threatened by. You know, like one that pops into my head now that's should be getting more voice, but it is going to affect us all, but we don't think it's going to, is climate change. You know, that's one where there's going to be, again, the bell curve, where there's a bunch of people in the middle. You've got the deniers on one side and the pros on one side and cons on the other. You know what I mean? We're always going to have something like that. And the only way that it is ever going to change, it's going to change by the courage of an individual or a small group of people to make make that change. Like just touching back to the state of your country a couple hundred years ago, it took one man's courage and strength, your president back then, to change that. And it's going to take something like that again. You know, a visionary in society who promotes people to stand up for what they believe, even though it doesn't really affect them directly. And that's what it's going to take. It is going to take that. So, yeah, I do hope that this, when we're old and grey, Odin and Timber, and we listen back to this episode, we go, wow, I can't we live in a world where we're going, geez, I can't even believe that we spent so much time talking about it. I really do.
I share that hope. I
Same here.
concur and I share it 100%. I hope we are old and gray. We've finally been able to hang out multiple times over the years and we're able to do these kind of things live. And we're just sitting on rocking chairs on somebody's front porch going, that was a stupid time. We were stupid. And
I don't know
we
about
can
you
laugh
guys.
about it.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to be over in Alpha Centauri by the time we get Warp Drive done. I'll be over there by Alpha Centauri and Proxima Centauri, and I'm going to figure out, okay, which planet is going to be habitable for us. And, oh, yeah, you remember that one stupid time that we thought that gay marriage was actually bad for our society?
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, man, that was so dumb. Oh, by the way, we just met an alien. Great.
Yeah, hey.
And then we have to deal with all of that all over again.
See,
Hopefully,
another
humanity.
can of worms.
I know, but hopefully, humanity as a whole will be much more mature and much more united before we even start dealing with other species. Because if we can't deal with each other right now and our minor nuances, what makes you think we're ready to deal with the possibility of other life forms out there, most likely more advanced than us? What are we going to do with that? How are we going to be racist against that? Literally speciesist against that.
And the thing that I hope the most is I hope it doesn't take what it took in the Star Trek universe for that change to occur. Because anybody that's delved a little bit in there, for us to get to the point where we finally banded together as the human race all over the world was a third world war of nuclear proportions that killed off millions. I mean tens to hundreds of millions of people. And then the Vulcans dropping. So it took us a nuclear war and then a warp test for us to learn, okay, we don't need to be doing this to each other because there's so many more great things out there. It took that. I hope it doesn't take that for us to finally learn our lesson as a human race. I really don't.
Well, that's probably going to be a topic for another show, especially with the whole climate change bit, which we're going to actually have, hopefully, one of the professors from UCF and Florida State chiming in on what they're going to do as far as talking to our governor in the state of Florida, Rick Scott, what they're going to do about climate change and how it's going to affect our state. And it's not even so much to the point where we have to try and convince people, look, this is the reality. Just like how, look, gay people are people too. Just because they don't like the opposite sex does not make them less human. It's just that if it doesn't conform to this one strict mentality, it's wrong or it doesn't exist. And I think that paints a bigger picture. It has a much more, how do I put it, a much bigger canvas that covers these subsections like, here's your gay rights portion of it here, here's your climate change portion of it here, here's your separation of church versus state over here, and all these other things that are just being painted on this canvas. But they all have this one major outlying thing there, and I'm trying to figure that out. What is the common denominator that unites all these little topics and hot buttons that pretty much wraps it all in? And if we can unravel that, we can clean off that canvas and paint a new one where we don't have to worry about those things, one we can actually say, here's where we can start advancing humanity, all of us, together, instead of separating each one of us out there and causing one group to hate on each other and another group to be oppressed and the third one to be denied the not just rights to exist, but the rights to live amongst each other. And a fourth group just to not be listened to, even though their sole purpose in life is to give us knowledge so that they can then provide our leaders with the proper advice to move forward. And, that's a whole nother ball of wax on this. So, gentlemen, any closing words before we wrap this one up?
Not really. I think I've said enough for today. But yeah, stand up for what you believe in. Don't give haters the ear, because don't listen to them. Don't give them the environment in which to flourish, which unfortunately is what happened on the after the last episode of House of Peg came out on Star Trek Online. There was an environment that was allowed for those sort of people to flourish, and we give them that. So don't give them it, and it won't happen.
Timberwolf.
It all boils down to we would go a lot farther as people, as individuals, and as a planet if we would simply be more understanding and more caring about each other than simply thinking about ourselves and our own belief systems and trying to make people conform. Because you're never going to have everybody conform to one thing, so you have to be open to diversity. It's kind of the Vulcan idic. Infinite diversity and infinite combinations. We can all band together and be one and yet be infinitely diverse in infinite combinations and be perfectly fine. So it's just understanding. If you have someone that you know that's not like you, instead of shunning them or talking about their back, get to know them. Because you'll find they might be a lot different than you, but they're also going to share a lot of the same things that make you who you are. And it's a fantastic learning experience, to be sure.
And all pretty much I have to say is this, whether it's Edmund Burke or who was the other, John Stuart Mill, one of the two probably alluded to this in their statement, but I'm going to paraphrase the quote. All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. It doesn't mean that you have to get out there and be a staunch advocate for civil rights for everybody, but do a little bit of something here, even if it's just a simple thing as telling your kids, hey, they're people too. That's it. You don't have to like the lifestyle, but just recognize that they're people too. This is Ode Knight. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here and hosting this, and thank you everybody who's listening out there. This is the show, after show. We're talking about a serious topic, and there'll be more coming up. Have a good night, everybody.